before we wrap up, before we do Quan fades, I want to talk Chris Paul a little bit. I wrote up a little thing. Again, I usually just kind of rap and talk and just do whatever, but I wanted to give him some love. And I was thinking about this because, right, he finally gets to the finals. The circumstances, I'll be the first to say, were set up and laid out pretty nicely for the Phoenix Suns. They were not supposed to get to the NBA Finals this year. From Jamal Murray with Denver, obviously Anthony Davis with the Lakers, and LeBron wasn't even 100%. Then Kawhi Leonard. Like, it's set up nicely, but he's there. It's been a long history of him in the playoffs, blowing leads. The fact that he's there, he deserves credit. But what I was wanting to really focus on is I was trying to think, what's the thing that I respect the most about Chris Paul? And I was driving over. People on the radio I was listening to were yelling about Giannis and the Bucks and how Atlanta's going to win because they trust Atlanta more. Again, I just hit on that. But I was thinking about Chris Paul, and I was like, so what is it that I really respect the most? And I decided that, outside of LeBron and maybe now Luka, because of the last few years, Luka has been insane with this. But I said Chris Paul is one of the best, basketball problem solvers that we've really seen. And I mean, there's a reason you have a name like Point God. Part of it is you can have games where you drop 41, 8 assists, and 0 turnovers, which, by the way, I believe he had 2 other games this series with 0 turnovers. I believe he had a game against Denver with 0 turnovers. The guy is a master. But when I really wanted to do was just looking at this series and what I mean by, how does he solve problems? How does he, and I mean, literally, it's like a puzzle for him in the NBA, and it's very similar to what LeBron would do tactically and figuring out where to put certain guys and how to break down a defense optimally over and over every possession. Chris Paul's probably the second best we've seen in the last 15 years, and I think Luka will get there too, and he's starting to show it. But let's just start. Look, he misses the first 2 games because of COVID. All right, after they go into LA, it's Chris Paul's first game back. It's game 3. The Clippers win that one. All right. Clippers made some adjustments. Ty Lue had been making adjustments all of these series. After they're going down 0-2 every time, he makes adjustments. They won every single game 3. So coming back in game 4, and we talked about this before, I noticed it, and it ended up being pretty significant because they only ended up scoring 84 in that game, but they won. But one thing that they changed from game 3 to game 4, the Phoenix Suns and Chris Paul started running pick and roll to get Zubats in a switch that would bring Zubats out of the paint. And Chris Paul would dribble up at the 3-point line to mid-range. And even if he missed, which he was missing a lot of those shots because he was ice cold those first games back. But even when he missed, DeAndre Ayton was down low against guys that were not Zubats down low. And he was crashing the glass. In that game, Ayton had 22 rebounds, 9 on the offensive glass. Okay? That basically was the difference. That's why they won game 4. Zoo gets hurt. That's one problem he solved, right? And that gets him game 4. Zoo gets hurt, so now the Clippers just have to go all small ball in game 5, and they switch everything, and it no longer really is, Chris Paul for one, and Devin Booker can't take Zubats off the dribble as easily. But and then on top of that, the Clippers did a good job of crashing the glass. They knew that, hey, we're going to go small. We need to rebound better than we did. But it was really difficult for the Suns to score in game 5 because the Clippers were switching everything. They had long, athletic guys at every position. Instead of being able to take them off the dribble and attack the glass effectively, they basically were settling for mid-range, which the Suns are generally good at relative to the rest of the league. Chris Paul and Devin Booker are 2 of the best in the league in the mid-range, but they're still difficult shots. And even better, because they were taking those shots regularly, the rest of the Clippers defenders could stay out on 3-point shooters, and the Suns were getting 0 good looks from 3. Okay? So they lose game 5 at home. Everyone expected that was the end of the series. Clippers actually make this a series again. So in game 6, what do they do to solve it? Chris Paul solved it. And Devin Booker at the same time, they attacked way more aggressively no matter who was guarding them. Because Zoo was not on the floor again. Clippers are switching everything. They attacked sooner. Instead of Chris Paul doing the thing where he dances around and waits, and then he goes, when they were going pick and roll and they got the switch, he didn't just wait and then decide. He was going sooner. But there were 2 times Booker attacked the glass where I thought he was going to stop and take a mid-range, and he just jammed it. He just threw it down. And I was like, holy cow, wait a second. Okay, this is a different attacking method. They're way more aggressive. And then what happened for the majority of that game was then the Clippers, if you're getting dunked on, you're collapsing into the paint. Everyone has to help. And then you had Crowder hit 5 threes. The bench guys, Payne, Craig, and Saric went 4 for 6 from 3. Now all those looks that the game before you weren't getting because defenders could stay home because you were settling for mid-range. Now they have to help not only to rebound because Ayton's there anyway, but because you have guys dunking and getting layups. Even Campaign, he missed 4 layups on the right side. I believe he's a lefty, but he went right-hand layups. He attacked. He had 4 layups. He missed all 4. He missed 3. I think 1 or 2 that got blocked. And then he just missed a couple bunnies that he probably should have made. But the fact that they were attacking, it just set up everything so differently. And then, I mean, Paul himself hit 7 threes, which helps. But the fact that Crowder and the 3 bench players combined to go 9 of 15 or whatever from 3, because they were just way more open. And it totally spread the defense out. That was what they solved. They also solved one other thing. And I'm not sure, this is probably a combination of Monty Williams trusting Torrey Craig, but also Chris Paul trusting Torrey Craig, because he, I think, makes a lot of the calls and the decisions. But Mikal Bridges, for as great as he was against Denver, Paul George, I mean, he roughed him up in Game 5 and throughout the series. He was able to get to the basket and attack, and Paul George could out-muscle Mikal Bridges, and he was getting buckets or getting fouled. And then it also set up more space for him against Bridges when he was doing step backs, because he could take Bridges off the dribble. They realized near the end of Game 5 that Torrey Craig, and they actually looked at the numbers, and I saw a tweet about it, but Craig on Paul George one-on-one was way more effective. And then yesterday they played Craig for 30 minutes. He was a plus 28 in 30 minutes. Paul George going 41 and went 15 for 20 in Game 5. Yesterday he scored about 20 points on like 6 of 15. And Torrey Craig's just longer, taller. George couldn't beat him off the dribble or just couldn't muscle him down low. And it just forced George to then turn and throw and hope that Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris could beat you and Pat Beverly. And that's just hard to do when you have Chris Paul and Devin Booker on the other side. So 2 solves, Game 4 and Game 6, and then defensively as well. I thought it was another one. It's just little things like that that, by the way, you know who was on the Milwaukee Bucks earlier this season? Torrey Craig. They traded him for cash considerations to the Suns. How happy would Milwaukee be right now? A guy that just shut down Paul George in a Game 6 to get to the finals and shot like 37% from 3 on the year. No DiVincenzo, no Giannis. How nice would it be to be able to be like, hey, instead of Bobby Portis or Bryn Forbes, we can bring Torrey Craig in off the bench. And they traded him for cash considerations. I just can't believe it. I was sitting there last night thinking about it, and then like thinking about it again today. I tweeted about it too. But that's my love for Chris Paul, man. One of the best solvers, figuring out how to just find every edge. All the EV, we talk about it in sports betting or just anything, really, poker, DFS, like you're trying to find expected value. And he literally solves every little nuanced thing on the basketball court. And even though it hasn't worked out for him in the past, he's had runs. They've been up 3-1 and blown leads, like at the Clippers. He did it this time. Shout out to Chris Paul. He's actually one of my favorite players to watch the last decade plus. And so